As a business owner or entrepreneur, as if I was to ask you, if you could have somebody that works for your business, that sole purpose was to better your company with more innovative and creative ideas, would you want that? And your answer would probably be just like anybody else's, yes. Well, today I'm going to talk about a creative strategist, and I'm not talking about a strategist that resides on the inside of your company. I'm talking about ones that will reside on the outside. And I want to talk about this because, when we talk about efficiency within a company, I think a lot of it is skewed because we don't take into account certain factors that may be limiting our ability to get the best information or the most creative vision or things that will help us perform better. And let me show you a couple things. Number one, when you look at the internal landscape of a business and you see a figure like 80% of the interruptions at work are considered trivial. That is a huge number, but you can't tie that to anything, right? But then you look at it and you say, well, based on these stats here, 56 interruptions a day for the average employee. 80% of that 56 are trivial. So, meaning that they're not necessarily things that are discussions that are going on that move the business in a real way. And then you look at some of these other ones. It takes 3 minutes spent working before the average employee switches tasks. And then this one I can understand totally. 2 hours spent recovering from distractions per day. And as we know, being a strategist is a progression. It's about getting to a destination that you're trying to figure out. And if you're being interrupted that many times over stuff that doesn't necessarily affect the bottom line, and you're having to get back into that moment or into that groove of how you're thinking, that's a challenge that is almost insurmountable. And it plays to the fact that businesses in general are probably not getting the best bang for their buck. And when you look at that part, so that's just interruptions. Now let's think about the clutter aspect. This is the aspect where on a daily basis, internal employees have to deal with 100 emails a day that they got to read and look at. Then they got probably 3 or 4 meetings a day that they got to be involved in. And then they're on the phone a few times a day that they got to be involved in. And then on top of that, they got to figure out, what's new and fresh for the next thing that they're working on. And I see that as an impossible scenario to get great business concepts from. And this is not a fault at all of the employees themselves, because most of them are good employees, creative employees, but the inherent internal environment of a company has to put this on them. And it's not done for just to make things busy for an employee, but it's actually part of things that you have to execute to get a lot of things done. But I see this as a problem. So I don't see this as, internal employees are not up to snuff. I see it as the environment itself just makes it difficult in the first place. And when I look at the company, we think of looking at it as a box. You're working in the 4 walls of that company, and you got to play by the rules. In this box, there's inherently some dynamics that you have to think about. Because if you don't think about these dynamics, not only are you fooling yourself, but you're fooling the people you're working with, because this goes on. This is a reality. But the thing is it's hard to measure these things because you can't go around and ask people about all these different points that I'm about to go over. But think about these. Politics versus solution. In any company, inherently there's politics. And a lot of times it's about aligning with the right person to get their promotion or whatever it may be. And these politics take away from the solution, because in an ideal situation, it's all about the solution. It's all about the idea. Doesn't matter who comes up with it. Doesn't matter who's the driver of it. The team wins because they come together. But it's hard to get to that point within those four walls. Then you talk about doing versus thinking. When you're in the box, you're doing a lot of doing. Like I said, you're doing the emails and the conversations and all that things that are going on. You're busy executing and doing. But do you have the necessary thought leadership going on in terms of time? And I would say a lot of companies struggle with this, because I haven't seen a company yet that is not really trying to figure out how to get more brainstorming in. And if they do it once or twice a year. And that's a very static way of being creative and thinking. And then you talk about vision versus creativity. To me, vision is about creativity, but it's equal parts strategy. So it's not about just coming up with an idea. It's about coming up with an entire strategy that goes back and that complements the values of the brand or values of the company. And then disrupt versus consensus. And I think this is a major one because I've seen it a lot. Internally, it's hard to be a disruptor. It's hard to be somebody that comes up with very unique ideas, because a lot of times it might be so far off of what you've done before that nobody wants to step on that ledge with you or step on that limb with you to make it happen. So then you get into a business environment that's about consensus. And there's nothing wrong with consensus, because at some point you have to have consensus to get things done, because there's a lot of different departments that have to sign off and that are a part of it. My problem is that shouldn't happen at the beginning. And a lot of times those ideas get chipped away at, to the point that once you get to the final product, it's not nearly as pragmatic as it was at the beginning. And then you talk about the future versus now. And the future is tough to look at when you are with your head down looking at the now and executing the now. And if you're not into the future, because now the future is about being 3 months away, 6 months away, 9 months away, and maybe at best a year away. So if you don't have somebody that's looking at the future all the time and understanding how it's relevant to today, you could be in a position of being obsolete. So that's why I'm talking about having a strategy from the outside in. And this strategy is to complement the internal mechanism at companies. It's not to replace it, but only to complement it. And I relate it to the military in the sense that they have strategic field ops. And these guys are information and database people. And their whole reason for being is getting the best information and the latest information as close to the source as possible. And then they relay that information back to their home base. And now that gives the home base information that they can now mold and create something that's going to give, the company the best chance. And that's what a creative strategist does. Is you got to think of him as your strategic field op, somebody that's going to bring you the best, most relevant information to target the ideas and concepts that you're going at. And, a creative strategy, he's a futurist, but he has to think of now. It's not a futurist as somebody that's thinking about all these things that could happen 10 years from now. These are people, and I consider myself one. It's somebody that's looking a year ahead saying, this is where we need to be, and this is how we need to do it. And then when you look at a creative strategy, you go, okay, well, where does this person's focus lies? Well, think about it. He has to be solution oriented. That's his whole thing. He's not into politics at the company or anything like that. He's about providing a solution for your company. He's also about understanding your problems and becoming a problem solver. Because every business has problems or challenges. And when he hears that, his antennas go up because now he says, okay, I have a goal to meet. And he's trying to figure it out. His third one we just talked about is he's on the ground. So he's going to get the best information because he doesn't have the clutter and he doesn't have the interruptions that a typical employee has. So he's going to be able to give you real-time information. And think about it. His sole mission is to be creative. Because if he's not creative, then there's no reason for him to be. If he can't give you something or offer you something more than what you can do internally, then there's no reason for him to be there. And then a good creative strategy is about understanding your brand as much as you understand it, and then understanding the possibilities and where it can go. And you don't think of this as a separate entity. You have to think of a creative strategist as a sixth man for your business. He's somebody that you have to look at and say, you know what? This is going to be a person that's going to help our business win and our concepts win. And at the very least, his job is to challenge, stretch, and push your brand. And that's hard to get internally. I hope you enjoyed this. And my thoughts is a creative strategist is going to be a new business idea. It's going to be much like you see venture capitalists these days, where a venture capitalist wants to invest in the best ideas. And the only way they can do that is they got to have a filter out in the field. So they got people out there looking at ideas, filtering which ones are good, which ones are bad, and then they're able to bring the best ideas back to home base to invest in. And that's what a creative strategist is designed to do for your brand. Is he is out there to be the filter, but also be the guy in the know that helps you take your business from here to a higher point. Okay, we've reached the end of the video module. The first thing I'd like to say is thank you for listening to the video. I hope it serves you well. I hope that you gained some insights on how to build a brand and some of the concepts that go into really flushing it out for your particular brand. And I'm going to leave my contact information up here right now, but I'm also going to leave it at the bottom of the page as well, so you can contact me directly, because I would love to hear from you and really discuss your business and how N2ITIV Solutions can really be a great support system for you building a great brand.